Such a great question, because no one's ever heard of UX or usability consultancy, and over the years I've been doing this, we keep changing what we've done. So at one point it was human-computer interaction, and this week it might be service design. So I've always said I'm a whatever I happen to be calling myself, and then I say to people, well, what I really do is I help organisations make their forms easier to fill in, and they say, oh, okay. Is that a job? And I say, well, there's not that many of us that do it, but I love it.
So this is one of the big challenges of UX, and even people who've heard of UX, it's still difficult to describe what we do. And there are so many different ways to do it. I don't believe anyone's really cracked it. Depending on the audience, if it's someone who's genuinely never heard of UX, then it's easy to make comparisons. So architects and interior design, so a mashup of architecture and interior design. Have you heard that used? I've seen it be very effective. And that's fair enough. I think what we do is a composite of what an architect does and what an interior designer does, at a very, very simple level. At a much simpler level, removing any kind of analogy at all, you're talking about just making stuff easier to use, more pleasurable to use, just improving the experience of using stuff. When we're trying to talk about it in terms of the value, but again in reasonably abstract terms for somebody that doesn't necessarily know much about it, I'd like to think that we're the guys responsible for how you feel when you love using something, and particularly obviously digital products and services, but we're behind that. We're behind that experience, we're behind that emotion, we're behind that feeling.
I guess, everyone that I've known is having the same problem. It's very hard to define what we do because it can be so broad. But if I have to introduce my work, I will probably not only say, I help make products easier to use, not by making things up, but by speaking to users.
I think UX and usability are pretty complicated concepts to explain to someone who doesn't work in the field. Even clients sometimes have a hard time grasping the full breadth of what we do. And so I tend to use an analogy that I use with my children, which is I tell them that I take a look at things, at the way they look, at the way people use those things and what makes them happy and what makes it difficult for them or challenging. Or I point to a website and I point at examples of things that don't work very well, or apps, because we all have them on our phone. And then I explain that my job is to analyze what I find out about these things and the way people use them and try to make them better.
Is that I represent you. I represent you as the user in a process that's mostly done by technology people, by engineers who have most of their attention on how things get coded, how fast it is to develop things and things like that. And you need someone in that process who will both understand what the user is trying to do, understand who the user is and the environment they work in, and create something for them to interact with that speaks to them in their language, in the way they do their work, so that the technology is subservient to what the user needs.
I tell people that I use design to make technology easy to use so that people can get the most out of its potential.